This podcast deals with themes, languages, and situations that may not be suitable for young audiences. If you're under the age of 18, parental guidance isn't going to help you here. Welcome to Now Open the Podcast, the sex education podcast for sex and education. I'm Trisha.
My name is Jobim.
And I'm Presh.
Yay! It's very rare that we have our producer on the show, so this is a treat.
And I have my own frame.
So you have your own box. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yay!
I've been promoted.
So tonight's episode takes a closer look at intimacy, and not the typical intimacy between couples that we usually refer to. After all, even romantic relationships aren't all about sex. Not to mention the relationships that we have with friends and family. So
really?
Today we
That's
are
news to me.
Really? Do you just fuck everybody, including
your family? Yeah. Didn't we talk about this last episode?
Oh, you're right. So today we are talking about non-sexual intimacy. But before we get into that, the newsstand.
All right. Jollibee and its ad agency are coming under fire for alleged discrimination after actress Titin Villanueva tweeted a screenshot of a directive to exclude actors who have been cast in BL or Boys Love series from a Jollibee commercial. Shortly after, a tweet featuring similar instructions also circulated. In a statement, Jollibee has issued a response saying, "There is no truth to the post circulating online about Jollibee Food Corporation or JFC's supposed casting guidelines against BL series actors. Consistent with our values and ethical standards, JFC has not issued any directives or guidelines that is discriminatory in nature. We treat everyone with respect and recognize the value of each individual. We are taking necessary actions to prevent any similar incident that misrepresents our company. Thank you." However, this doesn't seem to be the case, as evidenced by two separate occasions in 2017 and 2018, where Jollibee barred Bunny Kadag from entering its office in Ortigas, and where Jollibee pressured Miles Hollingsworth to take off her wig, as it would, quote, destroy Jollibee's image, respectively. Now, I say Jollibee, but what I mean is the Jollibee Corporation. I don't mean because I hope you're not imagining like a mascot forcing people to take their wigs off and like forcing people, not letting people into buildings. It's the corporation. It's the bad guy.
That would be kind of more threatening in a way.
It's a giant bee. It's scary enough, right? I mean, like, I'd do what a giant fucking bee told me to. Anyway, that was the newsstand. Now sitting down. What do you guys think?
All right.
Is Jollibee, like, are we giving a homophobic corporation all of our hard-earned money every time we buy a Yum Burger?
Well, I stopped buying from Jollibee a while back because of the contractualization issue. So it hasn't been that much of a difference for me to boycott, but I don't know if I believe their statement because, as you've mentioned, there were two incidences in the past.
Right.
And have they rectified it? And this just seems to be like the latest.
At the very least, indicates lack of sensitivity. But at its very worst, indicates like an undercurrent of discrimination within the corporation. At least, even if it's not overt, the fact that people feel comfortable enough working with Jollibee or working within Jollibee to behave this way towards people of the LGBTQ community means that they're still fostering an environment where it's okay to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there you
Especially
go.
because the one from, I think, Bunny Kadag was happening at the headquarters. And, you know, it runs deep. It's not any one person. It's like probably just Jollibee as a whole. And I don't know. I do believe the screenshots. I don't know if that was Jollibee's directive in particular, but the casting agency definitely said it. And I wonder where they got that information from.
Right.
So I don't know, Jollibee, you're in hot water. So get your shit together.
All right.
That's why
Well,
bees are going extinct.
if you're listening live and like what you hear, you can join the discussion by leaving a comment below. And if we have time, we'll get to them as soon as the show goes on. Join in on the conversation in the now open PH Discord server, where you'll be free to talk about anything and everything sexuality with like-minded people, respectfully, of course. You can find the link to the server in the episode description.
All right, so let's get on with tonight's discussion about non-sexual intimacy. I have a question for all the boxes in the screen.
Oh
What
man.
does what does intimacy mean to you? Like just the word intimacy.
Uh, okay, so this is a dumb answer, but every time I hear intimacy, I remember that stupid line from one of the worst movies ever made, The Love Guru, by Mike Myers. He's got these stupid platitudes, right? He's like intimacy or into me I see. That's honestly the first thing I think of when I hear the word intimacy. And the second thing is sex, naturally, because it's we have, I think, in terms of language, we equate the word intimacy with sex. It's hard to say. Like you equate the word moist with something dirty. You can't hear moist and think of cake. That's not what you think of, right?
I do. I
I think
love
of
cake.
feet sometimes.
uh, so yeah, what was the word we were talking about? Intimacy. Yeah,
Intimacy.
You think
It's
intimacy,
in the
and,
screen.
we've been intimate. Have you been intimate? It's that's
That
what I
makes
think.
sense.
What about you, Fresh?
For me, I think it's just I can hear myself again. I hate this. Music. I think for me it's just a level of closeness. I guess the being intimate with someone is allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to show a side of you that you wouldn't really necessarily show somebody you just met. So I guess to me there are certain levels of intimacy. And I feel like I've always understood it in this way because I always thought that I was asexual. So like my understanding of intimacy has always been a friendship level first, and then the whole sexual thing is like unlocked, like you've unlocked this stage of sexual intimacy for me. So yeah.
Okay, but for
I
Fresh, there are
really like
levels,
those.
and it's like familiarity. Intimacy is familiarity, and vulnerability for her. What about you, Trisha?
Well, as a Gemini, I would say both. No, if someone asked me what I thought of intimacy, my immediate thought would be Jobim's idea of sexual intimacy because,
Right.
well, I'm also a little bit biased because that's also how I get intimate with people in a non-romantic way. Sex is nice; it's a fun activity, but
Right.
also, I guess if I dig a little bit deeper, like if you give me 5 minutes to think about it, I'd probably say that intimacy for me is, yeah, sharing parts of yourself with people, allowing them to see all the good and bad parts of you. Vulnerability, I guess, is my idea of intimacy because I'm a very extroverted person and I love to share.
Kaya
I
kaya.
will no, because like okay, I'll have to say like vulnerability really has to be it because I love to share. I share all the time on this podcast. I will share to a stranger at a bar my entire life story, but there are certain parts that nobody else gets to see. My life is an open book, but there are other things that nobody gets to see except the people close to me. So that would
There are
be
certain parts that
intimacy.
I leave out.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I just want to read some comments from our customers. Giselle says that for her, being intimate is being my most freest, or is that? Being my most freest and most authentic self around someone. Uh, Matt
we
says to intimate as a verb means to share a secret. Okay, I did not know that. Or is that to intimate? Mm. Jaden says closeness that reaches or touches my heart.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And Matt once again says the opposite of ultimate, which
Thank you.
is hard to argue with. Nick says intimacy for me is the closeness of one's heart to another's by holding each other's hands. That is Hallmark worthy, Nick. All right.
Yeah, Nick, have you ever considered a career in
In
Hallmark trading
Hallmark
cards?
cards, yes.
So this is actually pretty close to the general definition of intimacy, which is cultivating closeness while in a relationship with someone. Not necessarily a romantic relationship. It can be a friendship. It can be familial relationships. Basically,
Mhm.
yeah, a relationship, as long as you have a connection with that person and you're cultivating closeness, that is intimacy. But it's really interesting that most of us connect intimacy or equate it even with sex. So
Mhm.
where do you think this comes from? Aside from like, are you being intimate? Like why do we feel that sex is intimacy for
I get
you?
it though, because like you're literally naked with this person. You know
Yeah.
how vulnerable can you get?
Yeah.
You have no clothes on. You're not covering any, like all
When
the
people
ugly parts of your body. You know.
when people talk about being vulnerable, right? The thing they always say is, "I was naked. I felt naked. I felt stripped down to my bare self." And that's literally what you do. Yeah, exactly. It's the most intimate thing you can do. And I think because of everything else that for the longest time has gone with sex, meaning marriage and having to raise children, all the things that go with sex, it's a very intimate uh, experience. Should things go wrong and you get pregnant, you know?
Are you speaking from experience?
No, no, no. Super intimate, dude. Super intimate.
That's really interesting to me because I love being naked. For me, nudity is not equal to vulnerability. In fact, for me, nudity is some sort of wall that I put up as well. It's like, look at my titties so you don't see my soul.
But
That's
Well,
how
they
I built
sure do
most
cover up your
relationships with people.
soul.
And of course, you can have sex without intimacy, right? One night stands, maybe some kind of like hate fuck. And then you can also have intimacy without sex.
Right.
Like sex can also occur in the context of intimacy as a way of expressing intimacy, but sex can also occur outside of it. So,
Yeah, you
yeah,
can
I
you can
mean,
totally
what?
have sex with zero intimacy with a complete stranger, one night stand, whatever, with somebody you're not even attracted to.
But eating breakfast with them, that's
Yeah, but
intimate.
that's intimacy. Yeah, there you go.
oh
Asking
yeah.
what they want for breakfast, even caring, like
I'm buying some milk tea. Do you want some? Oh.
That's
boba,
intimacy.
boba.
So, what do you think keeps people from getting intimate? What are the roadblocks that are standing in the way of people revealing who they truly are to the people around them?
Oh god, I swear this was like third to the last episode of the series finale of Avatar. What blocks like this chakra? It's like fear is the mind killer. No, that's Dune. Uh, I don't know. There's something that blocks like the mind. Uh, it's attachment to earthly, earthly things, right? But no, the one before that, like what prevents you from loving things. I don't know. I think fear, right? It all goes back to what RuPaul always says. Like, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else? And I think it's a way harder thing than a lot of us give credit for to love yourself. So intimacy is as much about loving yourself as it is, I think, about allowing somebody to love your unperfect self. Right? You have to be comfortable with the fact that you're not perfect and you're still being loved.
Yeah, the fear of being known is very terrifying because like you're sitting with yourself, and if you don't like yourself as a person, then you obviously don't want other people to see that because you're scared they won't like it too.
Mhm.
So I get that. A lot of people are very scared to be vulnerable. But have you ever had any experiences with like the fear of getting intimate? Is that something you can relate to, or is it just like an alien concept?
Me? Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think that anybody ever recognizes that they are rejecting intimacy when they're doing it. Especially when I was younger, I never would have outright said I reject intimacy. I At the time I thought I was welcoming it. I thought I was very very intimate with whoever I was dating. But as it turns out, I wasn't really, because when it got to the point when it came to examining myself in the relationship, I was never very open, and that is not the definition of intimacy.
So you
Intimacy
weren't allowing
is
yourself to be vulnerable.
yes, right? Like I could be very critical, but when it came to me, I was closed off, and that's not. I now understand that that is not being intimate. That is a form of non-intimacy, right? So not being honest with yourself doesn't allow you to be honest with other people. Uh, Gets in the way of intimacy. That's my
I guess
answer.
for me, because like what with what I said about intimacy being vulnerable, sometimes people like I've come to understand that people can take advantage of that vulnerability, or I guess the fear of not having that kind of vulnerability back, or them kind of weaponizing it in a way that would hurt me. So that would be my fear. Like that's what keeps me from being intimate with other people, is that fear.
I have a question. Once, my sister told me something one time that always stuck with me, and she said that what stops people from being happy in relationships a lot of times is people inherently think they are unlovable. You know, because there are a lot of fucked up people in this world. Unless you had like a great childhood and you were raised with an amazingly high self esteem and your life was perfect along the way, then you have some issues about yourself. And people tend to think that they are unlovable, and we tend to push people away before they can prove, because we're afraid that they'll prove us right.
Yep.
You're
It's
setting them up for failure.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're setting them up for failure because you're afraid that if they get to know you, they'll see that you suck. Do you relate to that?
Oh, look at us getting intimate. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're just like, hmm. No,
Hmm.
I very much relate to that because, as I said, I'm an extrovert and I'm not really scared of revealing things about myself. But there are things about myself that I am ashamed to admit it or talk about. And, like even like the crying in front of people. I don't cry in front of people, but I cry a lot. I cry a
um,
lot. But a lot of my friends have never seen me cry
we have
because
a counter, Trisha. We have a score going on.
what is the score now between you and me?
11-2.
So that's how many times Precious cried in front of me and how many times I've cried in front of her. So that's like still a part of me that I find very, very difficult to talk about with the people I love. I could probably film a video and post it to Twitter of me crying, but I cannot show it to the people around me. And that's like also a fear of getting intimate because they're the ones who are affected by my emotions and they're the ones who have more control, but they're the ones I'm scared to show my actual feelings to. So
Oh my
we all
god.
got some work to do.
No, same, because like I used to have this fear of showing my songs to like my family and my friends. Like it's
Right.
easier to sing to a crowd that doesn't know you or has an idea of you
Right. Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
performer
It,
versus
someone
singing
who
to
knows it was a
somebody who knows.
person.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And I think because we tie so many of our identifiers with who we are as people. I think when those things are challenged, we tend to feel like we are being challenged uh, in relationships, especially when you guys disagree, you have differences. Uh, it You can feel like somebody is criticizing you when they are criticizing your thoughts, right? You are not your thoughts, you are not your ideas, you are not your values. And in relationships, a relationship is a place to question values. It is a place to test out these things, and to test your values and morals and stuff like that. um, and I think in a lot of relationships, when your values come into question, you feel you are being criticized when that's not the case,
Yeah, that's
right?
very
You
true.
you tend to take it as a personal attack when it's not a
Actually,
personal attack.
we have a comment here from our customer from Stefan. Rejection is my number one reason for not trying to initiate intimacy. I've been burned that way a lot. And I get that. Sometimes people who have no problems with vulnerability and intimacy, they become the people that they don't want to be. They become closed off because pain sucks. Rejection sucks. Nobody likes going through that, you know? If you know that heartbreak is almost inevitable with a particular relationship, why put yourself through that when you can protect yourself from it?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's the thought process.
Yeah.
But as a big softie, as a big softie, I can't imagine what it would be like to live a life where you don't allow people to love you. I think I would die without love. I'd rather go without food than without love for extended periods of time.
Wow.
I think another common mistake that people make is equating. Yeah, at the start of the episode, we said that sex and intimacy are not necessarily the same thing. They don't necessarily have to be the same thing, and I think forgetting that is also a roadblock to getting intimate, because you can't always have both.
That is true. There's like sometimes you feel the pressure that if you want to be intimate with someone, it means that you have to take your clothes off and suck their dick. And that stops you because you're like, what if I don't want to do that yet? Or on the converse, like this person says they want to be intimate with me, and now
I'm not there yet. I'm not there. Feelings wise, should I still have sex with them? Yeah, hell yeah, you can have sex with them if
right.
you're not
and
there
there's also the
emotionally yet.
opposite, where it's like I really like this person and I want to be intimate with them. I want to see their dark parts or whatever.
Exactly.
But they don't want to have sex with you, and that at that point, and that feels like rejection because you feel like they're rejecting your intimacy when perhaps what they're looking for is just different kinds. Intimacy that doesn't rely on carnal pleasures, which is also a very fair and very valid ask.
Absolutely. Let's get to some comments from our customers. When we asked you guys what keeps people from getting intimate, Giselle said rejection. And Chase Garcia says fear, really. Sometimes you're scared of opening up to someone because you think you're the wrong person to reveal. They're the wrong person to reveal yourself to. Jaden says lack of trust. As someone who's curvy and trans, it's hard to have intimacy with people that won't embrace and respect fully who I am. I can see how that'd be a terrible, terrible roadblock. Matt says to be intimate is to risk being hurt. That is why we need an idea of an all-loving God. I don't see how that. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I think.
You know what? I sort of understand it from a perspective of like, at least God loves me.
Yeah. Like, no matter what I do,
I mean, because allegedly, if he is an all-loving God, then he's literally the only person who can, or being entity that can love you despite your flaws, and that's something that people cannot guarantee. So there's comfort.
There
in
is
that
comfort
idea.
in that.
Absolutely.
I get it. Mark says intimacy is a stage of maturity. Essa says sometimes I tend to overthink things. If I share something about myself, they might leave you, or they might just be a temporary person in your life. Stefan,
all people are temporary in your life in a way.
That's really morbid. Everyone is temporary.
Thank you, Trisha.
Is fleeting and we're all living on borrowed time.
Okay, I took a less nihilistic approach. It's like everything is temporary, so you make the most of it.
Okay, yeah.
Fine.
You don't go the other way.
Fine.
Stefan says rejection is my number one reason for not trying to initiate intimacy. I've been burned that way a lot. All right, cool. Thank you for weighing in, you guys. Now, before we move on to the rest of the discussion, are we playing a clip from anybody tonight?
Yes, we are playing a clip.
Okay, great.
So
Yeah.
I want to play a clip from an artist who's actually listening in right now. So if you can hear this, Rachel, this is just for you.
Who could it be?
No. All right, producer, why don't you play Big Shot?
Why did you get so shy? Well, last you were so bold when you told me she'd replace me. Guess luck would have me leave that spot. Big shine. High on fame, you're mixing with this cooler crowd. Oh wow, what's her
And that was Big Shot by Coates. If you want to catch that on Spotify, just search for Coates. Thank you, Rachel, for an amazing song. Please send us more of your music.
Awesome possum. Now, if you guys like what you hear, you want to support your beloved sexual delinquents, you can send us money like the whores we are. For the less than the price of 1 cup of a bougie coffee per month, you can keep your favorite sex podcast up and running for many episodes to come. And it comes with a lot of goodies like extra content, special shout outs, and exclusive access to a VIP customer channel on Discord. You could even suggest an episode. It helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. Now, back to the discussion.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about what makes people terrified of intimacy. And before we go into the next part, I kind of want to talk a little bit about Gone Girl. Because I feel like Gone Girl is a great example of a marriage with zero intimacy and then suddenly
Really?
all of the intimacy.
I thought it was a very intimate marriage, man.
Well, not
As
at
intimate
first.
a marriage as you can get.
Well, before the fake murder plot,
Right.
their
Right.
relationship wasn't very intimate. You kind of get the idea that both of them are putting on a facade. They never got past the let me show my best foot forward stage of dating, and they kept just trying to meet the high expectations that they've set early on in their relationship, and they're basically pretending to be different people, and that's why the marriage ended up the way it did. That's why she was so dissatisfied, because there's no way that he could live up to the expectations she set, and no way that she could live up to his expectations.
I remember that's a great example for this episode, because there was a line in that movie where she goes at the start where she goes, he would use me when he wanted to have sex, or like he would use me when he was horny. And then it's a shot of Ben Affleck, like her staring off into the middle distance while Ben Affleck like lazily humps away by the fireplace. And then, he just pulls up his pants and walks away. Yeah,
Not even a thank you.
Yeah, not even just a wham bam. No, thank you, ma'am. Right?
Mm.
And that's a great example of a marriage that has sex with zero intimacy.
Exactly.
So there are many marriages that go on like that for a long time, apparently.
So how exactly do you avoid your partner from framing you for their murder in a very elaborate way? There are
Still trying to figure that one out. Keep falling into that trap, man.
You've been successful so far. I'm surprised that none of your ex-girlfriends have tried to frame you for their murder. It would be so easy.
That you know of. Don't look any of them up to check if they're still alive. Don't do it. Anyway, what are the factors of an intimate relationship, right? Well, the one you always hear, the golden one, the most cliche one, above love, above respect, it's trust, right? You have to trust your partner.
Our customer earlier mentioned that was one of the biggest reasons they find it difficult to get intimate, is because they cannot trust the person, especially off the bat when you're first starting to date. And that's very fair. But if you're in a relationship with someone, please, dear God, I hope you trust them. Because if you don't, why are you in there in the first place?
Absolutely. I mean, it is okay to... No, actually, no. I kind of think it's a red flag. If you don't trust your partner, if you think they're cheating on you, that's still a red flag, right? Like it is their responsibility to make you feel secure, unless of course you were batshit crazy. So yeah, you have to trust your partner. What about you guys? What are other factors that go into making an intimate relationship work? Not necessarily sexually intimate.
I would go back to the Gone Girl example where they weren't honest with each other. They were pretending with everything. They were pretending to be okay until it just accumulated and that happened. So I think you should be honest. If you can't be honest with the people that you love and who claim to love you, there's really no other people that you can be honest with, because the world out there is harsh. There has to be a few people who love you for who you truly are.
Ironically, the message of Gone Girl contradicts that, in that their ultimate intimacy, in that they know each other's deepest, darkest secrets. Nick had an affair, and Rosamund Pike's character murdered someone and tried to frame him for murder. That's when they work the best, but they're most miserable.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's when they're able to put up the best front, but that's also when they're most miserable.
That is
after
true.
they found out most about each other. Yeah, but so honesty, that's why honesty with everyone, not just your partner, is important.
Yeah, because if you're
Communicate.
hiding the fact that your partner's terrible from other people,
Yes,
also a red
yes,
flag. Or
absolutely,
even if not your partner,
absolutely.
even if it's a friend, because we're talking about non-sexual intimacy here. Even if it's a
Right, right,
friend
right.
and you're
Emotional
hiding that,
intimacy. Yeah. I mean, how can you have an intimate relationship without communication? Intimacy is developed through, as we've been seeing for, I mean, for 30 minutes now, vulnerability, familiarity, and you can't get those things without communication. You can't just spend like 2 hours in silence staring at somebody into somebody's eyes. As much as we like to think that staring into somebody's eyes is a super fucking intimate experience, and like I got to know her soul. Yeah, it's amazing, but I mean, talking is also really intimate. You have to communicate.
And with that, because when you're intimate with someone, like, you get to know somebody's soul, right? But that's not always the I can hear myself again, god damn it. It's not always good stuff that you know. When you get close to somebody, you start
Right.
seeing all these bad things, and you have to be ready with that. You have to and with yourself as well. Like, I see somebody's bad aspects, and they're gonna see some of mine as well. Am I ready to handle this? Am I ready to, like, confront myself and say this is not okay? you know
Right.
and I think going back to yourself, when I went back to myself and said that these things I did were not okay and I have to change that, I found my relationships more worthwhile and better, because, like, that's when I found out the people who see those things and chose to stick around, and work our relationship through that.
I think
Damn.
that's
I
like the
think.
main thing that really separates Gone Girl from people like us or the relationships that we cultivate, because there was no appreciation, no gratitude in that relationship. It was constantly sniping at each other
Yeah.
and devaluing the work of the other person or devaluing the struggles of the other person. But if you can be honest and they can return that with, I appreciate you for being vulnerable with
Mhm.
me, and I am grateful that you're in my life, and because I am grateful, I will do what it takes to keep you in my life. If there's that, then it's much easier as well to build trust and open, honest communication, because there's always going to be a risk when you have a relationship with somebody else, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship. There's always going to be a risk of that not lasting forever. That's just the risk that we take. But if you can commit to that appreciation and gratitude, you can keep really long, intimate, close relationships for longer than you think.
Right. Right. And it's intimacy is not just about pleasant experiences. Intimacy often, yeah, like Presh said, it often comes with looking at the ugly parts of yourself, and oftentimes some of the most intimate things that can take place between two people or a group of people are a confrontation. A
Mm.
healthy confrontation is possibly one of the more intimate non-sexual things you can do with someone, because it does force them to confront who they are as a person, and it does force them to change and grow. And when you affect somebody on that fundamental level, how much more intimate do you want to get with someone, um,
Do
Matt
you have
says
any
they're
experience
actually,
with
yeah,
that? Oh, sorry.
with me.
Yeah, like, do you have any experiences with like friends where you had to sit them down and be like, okay, this isn't cool anymore? And
Yeah.
how did that
Oh,
work out for your friendships?
I in high school, that I was that friend. I was the friend who got sat down and talked to a lot because I was a problem. And it stopped. It stopped when I hit college because I got you friends. No, I'm kidding. It stopped when I got to college because I stopped with the behaviors. Because you know what? It did get to me after a while. It works when your friends come at you from a place of love and they say, "Look, this is a problem." It works because when it happens often enough, you start wondering, "Is it me? It's possibly me.
Am I
Yeah,
the
I
bad
might be.
guy?
I might be the
Yes.
problem." After the 14th bull session, starting to think I see a pattern. Yeah.
But how
Uh,
did your friendships fare? Were they stronger after?
I'm friends with them to this day. Some of them live in different parts of the world. We still talk.
Yeah. Mm.
But is
Yeah.
I
awesome.
Yeah, same for me. I feel like I was the problem for most of the part, but I didn't feel like they were. I don't know. Maybe they didn't care enough to like confront me, or maybe they were scared, so they didn't, and it kind of played out really horribly. So I'm not friends with those people anymore, and it kind of I came to an understanding that as much as they should have as my friends, they didn't. And I took that upon myself to be like, if I have a friend that is being an asshole, I'm going to be a good friend and say, like, stop, you're being an asshole. And in fact, I've done that a couple times to one of my friends. And at first, like, not, he was defensive about it. But then I was just I was telling him, I'm telling this to you because I love you. And eventually he came around and now we're really good friends. Like, I consider him one of my best friends until now.
I actually have an opposite story in a way. I expressed my vulnerability once to a group of friends. They were a relatively new group, but we had like bonded very, very quickly. They adopted me into their coven group situation, and it
A
was really
coven.
nice. Yeah, it was a coven.
Always nice to be welcomed into a coven.
Right, it
Off to a
felt
good start, this
amazing.
story.
But I was a bit vulnerable, or I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I got really drunk and I was expressing some insecurity about something, and they kicked me out of the group, which was great. Uh,
That's
so
weird.
that instance of trying to be vulnerable didn't work out for me. I'm sure part of it was my approach. I mean, I'm not going to say that I was completely faultless there, but
Mhm.
that also didn't necessarily turn me off from being vulnerable with other people. I think I just recalibrated how I did it. And so that I could at least say that if I tried my best, I did my part here, and maybe the other person wasn't ready to accept it, and that's fine. But
Mhm.
it at least alleviates my guilt because I know I've done the most I can do as a person.
Right. That's good. As long as you know that you've done everything in your power, then yeah. Let's get to some comments. Mackie says intimacy can't thrive in inauthenticity. If you can't be secure in yourself and share that with others, intimacy is bound to be difficult. Essa says probably respect also is considered because no matter how much you want to be intimate with them, it is one of the factors that make your relationship work and last long. Rachel,
Yeah, mutual
you guys
respect is
might
so underrated. I think I read
absolutely.
an article somewhere that more than communication, even respect is what makes for long lasting relationships, because there
Right.
will be times when there's going to be a communication breakdown.
Mutual
It's just
respect
going
is
to
my
happen.
biggest kink. So
Mm,
sexy.
sexy.
Rachel, who you might remember from the break, intimacy for me has always been knowing you're being loved, not for the idea of you or for the person you could be, but for the you are, even if she is full of popcorn to bursting like they are packing peanuts.
That's the
All
best
right.
kind of person.
Yeah. Mark says, so you're saying intimacy is being your true, authentic self and not being afraid of being who you really are? Yes and no. Intimacy is, yes, being true to your authentic self, but I don't think it necessarily comes with a lack of fear because who isn't afraid of being who they are? Who isn't afraid of being judged by strangers and, more importantly, by the people who we're intimate with, by the people we open ourselves to? So I think it's perfectly natural to be afraid. Stefan says you need to learn to be intimate with yourself before you start being intimate with other people. Yep, learned to be intimate with myself when I was like 15 first. Nikki, learning how to listen to verbal and nonverbal communication would help. Defo help keeping that relationship going. All right.
I like Matt's comment. Intimacy. Hey, want to see a dead body?
I'd
Okay,
totally be
going
down for that.
through
Yeah.
a terrifying traumatic experience together is also, I guess, bonding,
Yeah.
trauma bonding.
Trauma bond.
Let's go experience something traumatic together. You want to be best friends? Let's go.
Boom. Intimate.
Yep.
Very intimate. Oh, I like this by Mark. Intimacy is when two different altitudes finally see the same
Ooh.
horizon. You should also
Oh,
get a career in Hallmark greeting card in
you and
that
Nick need to
industry.
form a card company.
Absolutely. These are
Yeah.
great quotes. All right. So now that we've talked about what are the brand pillars, the essential values
Right.
of intimacy,
Right.
what are some of the ways that you can practice non-sexual intimacy with the people in your life? What's your favorite one, Jobim?
Sorry. Wait. What? I was reading this. I was reading this comment. Oh yeah. No. Go. Yeah. What are the ways
So
we can practice? No, wait. Ways you can practice non-sexual intimacy in your life? Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Damn. This is a real one that I do with my girlfriend frequently. Which is we take time off the when we're both in bed and we're watching something. Sometimes we'll turn the TV off before we even get sleepy and just talk with the lights off.
oh,
It's fun because you're not paying attention to anything else other than what is being said, right? There's no non-verbal cues. You can't see each other. You're not making any gestures. You're just lying down in bed talking. And I find that that is when we laugh the hardest at the things we say because it's so funny. You're just focused on what you guys are saying and you're so present in the moment. There is something about being in a dark, cold room with somebody and laughing that is so that bonds you guys. So yeah,
yeah,
that's a
especially now, like we're always on our phones, and Presh and I have
yes,
had this
yes,
confrontation. Well, that's a very aggressive way of putting
phone
it.
time.
But like there was a time when we were hanging out and I was on my phone and I was not minding Bresh. And yeah, we weren't spending quality time together, and that really cut into the intimacy of the moment because my mind was elsewhere and I was, paying attention to other things. But when you fully pay attention to the person that you're with, that's really the time that you can build a relationship together and also just make them feel valued. Everyone just wants to feel valued.
Right. I think for me, it's because you know how you have friends. I can hear myself again. God fucking damn it. You you have friends to do like your favorite things with. Like, oh, I play video games with like this one group.
Yes,
I do this and that. But it's so rare to have somebody in your life that is not really into the things that you're doing, but they're willing to do it with you. Just because I want to be in your life, I'm willing to do these things even if I don't necessarily enjoy them. And that's when you
right.
sometimes it's like, oh, I was into this thing. And it for me, that's a level of intimacy, is because you know how sometimes you're like hanging out and you do want this one thing together. Well, take that away. Take your common thing away, and where do you guys stand as in a relationship, right?
Absolutely. Uh, it's easy to get caught up in a lot of things also. I mean, we're constantly scrambling to find things to distract us. If you were living with your partner, then chances are you've been stuck with them the entire fucking pandemic, man. Like you take that shit for granted, and it's very very easy to take that shit for granted. So make time for your partner. Despite the fact that you see each other every day, not all time spent together is quality time. That's why it's called quality time. So make sure that you guys are able to set some quality time together, and that the things that you do spent together are equally enjoyable for the both of you, and that it brings you guys closer together instead of just to pass the time, which is what we tend to do most of the time when we've reached a level of familiarity with our partners past intimacy, which is another point I want to make. There is, even though intimacy is vulnerability and familiarity and all that stuff, it is possible to get a point uh, of familiarity past intimacy, where you guys sort of take each other for granted. So you got to
Oh yeah.
reel that familiarity back in a little bit, drizzle some mystery, if not mystery, surprises. You know what I mean? Something new, something to spice the spice of life.
I'm sad that our ghost host Kai isn't here today because I'm sure she would jump in with scheduling is sexy.
Yes, yes,
Or like,
absolutely.
even if you're spending time with friends, especially now where you can't run into people at pubs or at Route 196 anymore. You have to make time for the people
Mhm.
that you care about.
Yeah.
Scheduling inumans or weekly movie nights or
Mhm.
basically any way to actually hang out. But your schedules have to match. So scheduling, Google Calendar, very good ways to develop intimacy because at least you're doing it regularly. That's also, I guess, another thing that has to be important, like the consistency. Like
Right.
some relationships don't demand as much intimacy or as frequent intimacy as others. Like there are some people that you can talk to after 2 years and it's like the same level of intimacy. That is
Mhm.
cool. But generally, most relationships do require some level of maintenance. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to restart that if you wait long enough. So
Thank God for low maintenance friends, though. I'm a super low maintenance friend, man.
I feel like I'm a
I'm
high
like,
maintenance friend.
Oh
I
yeah.
am like the friend equivalent of moss. Just like a little water every once in a while, and I'll just grow slowly by myself. But yeah, and also
Different
being
people,
in
different
addition
needs.
to in addition to being present, I think listening intently to what people are saying is also very important. When people do Zoom calls a lot, it's also very easy to get distracted. I'm getting when kids are doing their Zoom classes, they get distracted because they're just paying attention to a screen. And because that's primarily how a lot of us are hanging out today. Be present in the moment and listen intently. When people speak, respond to them in the moment. Don't plan what to say or think of past instances that can come into play in the current situation. And I love this one because we all outgrow those friends, don't we?
In a way,
When you're
yeah.
talking about intimacy, you're also talking about friendship, and I think we can all relate to having a friend that just has default phrases, that a conversation with them isn't actually a real genuine conversation. They just have stock jokes that they repeat all the fucking time. they don't
That's my
they never
type.
have any real insights. They never have anything real to say. They're
They don't
just
ask you
repeating. They
questions.
don't ask
There's
you, and if they do, they interrupt you to tell their own story. They're not, because they're not really interested. They're just waiting for a time to jump in, right? And we outgrow those people. So when we say don't plan what to say or think of past instances that can come into play in the current conversation, or don't plan what to say to make you look good, plan what to say to affect the other person. You know, yeah, be present in the moment.
Diba, check in on them. Like, let me tell you, have, not had. I have this friend. We were really close in grade school,
Yeah.
and we don't really talk a lot. We don't really talk a lot anymore. We say hi to each other every now and then when we bump into each other. But like there was this random time where the both of us were feeling bad, I feel. And I think I just checked in on her like, "Hey, how are you doing?" It's so simple. And she says like, "Oh, I'm good." Blah blah blah. And then after a while she goes, "Okay, fine. You know what? I'll be honest. I'm not doing good." And she said that I'd usually lie to whoever's asking that, but since you're like one of my oldest friends, like I'll actually be honest. And in that moment I felt like, wow, it it I feel like it's so simple, but when somebody checks in on you and say like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Fine, okay, good. Okay. But then when they're actually feeling something and then they decide to open up just because you checked in on them, and otherwise they wouldn't have like opened up to you if you didn't ask, right?
Right. Right.
When that happened to me, I felt so much closer to her than I felt in like how many years that we weren't talking to each other, you know.
I
Oh,
love
that's
it.
awesome. And actually, this is really also a good way that I've built, I wouldn't say like super intimate relationships, but like at least a foundation for a friendship with people online that I've never met, like on Twitter. It really starts from that. Like you check in on them. They tweet something worrisome, so you're like, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need someone to talk to?" And you've never talked to them before ever, but the fact that you are one of how many thousands of people who've seen that tweet, but you're the one who responded, that already like builds some kind of like intimacy, even if you've never met in real life. And I have a
Yeah,
lot of
you're a
friends I've made this way.
You're a good person, Trisha, because I don't do that shit. I don't reach out to strangers who like I know from Twitter and I see they're like, I have COVID. I don't like, well, soon, buddy. I don't.
Well, not total strangers. Like I've
Damn,
seen
I
their
might lose a
tweets
follower.
But hey,
That's rough, buddy.
honestly, it really does help because then when you're in trouble, a lot of people are checking in on you too. You know, you're building that network of support, and it's really helpful because sometimes you can't reach the people in your immediate circle, or maybe they've given you all they got, and you just need a little bit more. You know, it helps to be building intimacy in online spaces too. A certain level of intimacy. Please don't just give your full name, address, and TIN number to a random person on Twitter. You know, they still have to earn your trust and your intimacy, but it's nice because online gives you a little bit of a buffer. There's a little bit of a safety there.
So you're saying that intimacy is easier because of the anonymity.
It's not anonymous.
Because
Like,
it's
you know
less
these
intimate
people.
because we're not face to face. It's easier to. Okay, there is truth to that because there is that adage that the comfort of strangers, right? You're more likely to divulge things, so it's also easier to be kind to strangers. That's why people donate things.
I think also with especially my experience with Twitter is that obviously all social media is curated, but Twitter tends to be a lot more because you're just typing out tweets very,
Right.
very quickly. So sometimes you get to see glimpses of the person
Mhm.
on their Twitter feeds. So you feel like you do know them a little bit, so that actually already provides a base level of intimacy, especially if they follow you back, your mutuals, and now you know
Right.
each other's breakdowns
Yeah.
because
yeah.
you tweet about it.
This person is psychotic. Yeah.
It's like,
I
oh, she
know the
also
pattern.
right, like, oh, she also has this problem with regulating
Yeah.
emotions. We'll get along. So I don't know. I feel like online has made it easier for me to be intimate because I'm able to get a glimpse into people's lives and their emotions and their thoughts. And that makes me relate to them more. That makes me get to know them more than rather going to a bar. Because the intimacy at a bar is I wouldn't say that you get a lot of intimacy there.
Well, Essa and Matt make interesting points when they say sometimes talking to strangers is actually a good thing. They are the ones who even checks on you more than your actual friends. And Matt says, amen, fuck my friends. Well, this episode is for you guys. This episode is for you guys who want to be more intimate with your friends, for people who want to have better relationships with the people who they're not necessarily fucking, but they still want to be close to. So you guys might want to try the things that we discussed earlier on. Trust, honesty, communication, openness, and appreciation and gratitude. If you find that it's difficult for you to open up to your friends or that your friends aren't listening to you, try those things or find new friends.
There are so many friends out there.
Yeah,
I'll
there's
be your friend.
literally 6 billion, 7
I have
billion other
space.
friends. Yeah.
We can
You
be
always
friends.
have space, Trisha.
I have infinite space for
You have
friends.
infinite space for friends and people, I swear.
Trisha's space for friends is like Angelina Jolie's adoption dungeon. It's just there's
Dungeon.
always space for one more.
So Trisha has a friend dungeon,
Ooh, that sounds exactly like what I would have. In so many levels.
Hello, friends. Which one am I
What
going to
shall
play
we
with
do
today?
Would you like to play some Ring Fit? Some Star Realms?
That's my Left 4 Dead.
Well, carrying like a trudgeon, like hitting the bars as she walks along. Stop crying! Stop crying! You love being here.
I'm a great friend. Say it.
You want your dinner? Then you act like you're my friend.
It's my third dinner tonight. No, you eat. You're a good house guest. You eat.
Yep, that's me.
Anyway, I think that was it for our episode on non-sexual intimacy. What do you want to call it? Is it non-sexual intimacy or emotional intimacy? Are they
Actually,
the same thing?
before we end, I think I
Yeah.
want to end on this one particular question
yeah.
that Mart has. He
Sure.
says, is it still non-sexual intimacy if you are being intimate, hoping it will turn sexual? What is the difference between intimacy and flirting?
Ooh.
I'm glad you asked, Mark. Very glad you asked, because those two are not the same at all. There's, I think flirting, you have the intent of, I think it's the intention. What is the difference? The intent. You don't have the intention of getting flirty. Intimacy doesn't necessarily have to have that like undercurrent of flirtation or attraction. Uh, Whereas actually flirting doesn't have to be intimate either. Flirting can be very, very superficial. Those two things are two completely separate things.
Yeah, for sure. I love to flirt. I flirt with pretty much most people that I meet off the bat. I actually would say that flirting, it can sometimes even be the opposite of intimacy.
Right,
you
right.
know,
It's so
'cause-
non-personal.
yeah, it can be like a
Impersonal, that's
game.
a word, yeah.
You got there
Non-personal.
eventually. So sometimes for me, like flirting's a game. Sometimes it's just fun. It's exciting, but it has nothing to do with vulnerability
Right.
at all or intimacy because you don't develop close relationships if all you're doing is flirting. Like you're not actually talking about anything, you're just flirting constantly. I don't see how you could build a super intimate relationship that way. Maybe. Okay, so yeah, that was actually our episode for
There you go.
non-sexual intimacy. We're gonna call it that.
Amen.
I actually really didn't want to call it platonic intimacy because
Because fuck
you can
Plato.
have sex with your friends. That's one way to build platonic intimacy in a sexual way. So non-sexual intimacy it is. So what is your number one takeaway from tonight's episode, Japan?
My number one takeaway is that there are levels to intimacy. Being intimate with someone is not, well, it's a blanket term for different levels of getting to know somebody. So, just because you are intimate with someone, it doesn't mean that you are as intimate as you could be, and it doesn't mean that you are as intimate as they would like you to be. Sometimes you may even be way more intimate than they'd like you to be. So yeah, know which level of intimacy, I suppose, is right for you, or know what you're looking for in terms of intimacy.
And that could change from relationship to relationship. You might
Absolutely,
ask for
absolutely.
more from one.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Presh?
I actually like what Mark said about intimacy being maturity. Something along the lines of that is, I guess it ties into my own understanding of being intimate with someone. Is you're not just seeing the bad parts, right? You're also seeing the good. So there's a level of maturity that has to come with like sitting down and saying this is where's my train of thought. But
It's boarding
yeah.
the station.
It's boarding the station. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Right. And what Mackie also said about you can't be intimate if you're not authentic. Yeah, intimacy
Right.
can't
Yes.
thrive in authenticity, right? And I think for me, because I always try to be such a genuine person, and if you are genuinely bad as a person, then you have to, like, there's still maturity that comes with it. You have to sit yourself down and say, like, be authentic, but be be a mature person as well.
All right. Trisha.
There we go. My takeaway is that intimacy is, God, terrifying for some people, especially true intimacy, because we all have the fear of being known and perceived. But I don't know. I personally think it's really worth it because when you allow yourself to be intimate with somebody else and they return that intimacy, you've created a connection that has probably impacted and will impact the rest of your life, and you're a different person now because of it. And those are good things. It's really incredible how we can affect each other and how we can, just by caring for each other. You can change somebody's life just by caring for them and checking in on them and being a good friend and being a good person. And you
Absolutely.
should develop that regardless of the type of relationship you have. There are some people who date people they're not friends with, that they have zero care for and zero intimacy with. And it's like, okay, you know what? You do you. I'm not going to say it's a waste of time because everybody has different priorities. But for me, I'm just here on this earth to be intimate with others. That's what I feel makes us human. I think it's our desire to connect with other people in a way that's authentic. So fulfill your highest part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and allow people to love you. Maybe it'll help you love yourself a little bit more, but you should also work on that too
Hmm.
on your own. But love other people, love yourself, be friends.
All right.
Be yourself.
Before we say goodbye, let's open the floor up to questions from our customers for today's opening up. We have an anonymous letter, and Anonymous writes, what would be your best advice in discovering one's gender and or sexuality?
Let's
Ooh,
ask the
good
cis
one.
het man
Yeah, let's ask
first.
the dude who's never done any exploration whatsoever on sexuality, on how to discover your sexuality. I don't know, dude. How did I discover I was hetero? I don't know. I watched a lot of porn and got very aroused. Masturbated a lot of times and figured, damn, must be straight. Don't know what to tell you. The
That's
best
fair.
advice in discovering one's gender and their sexuality. From what I understand, it is a process of self discovery, and it is much about exploring your interests sexually as it is about discovering who you are as a person, because there is so much about you that informs your sexuality that has nothing to do with sex. So I suppose that would be my advice that makes the most sense to me.
How about you, Presh?
I'm still thinking. Go,
Okay,
Trisha.
I'll give my take. So as a bisexual woman who used to be a lesbian, the way that I discovered my sexuality and kind of got to this point is I was just open to the things that I was feeling. I would just feel things and not immediately judge or label what it is. I'll just acknowledge it. So, oh, I find this person attractive. And then I don't like overthink it too much. I remember when I first started liking a man and I sort of almost overthunk it. I was like ready to go to a psychologist because I was like, I'm a lesbian. Why do I like a man? And then I realized, why am I making such a big deal out of this? This is just where my life is taking me. And the
Mhm.
thing about gender or sexuality, I don't think it can be discovered in a way because I don't know, for me the word discovery kind of has it's like you're discovering a solid permanent state of something. But gender and sexuality, these can be completely fluid. You could be one thing today, another thing tomorrow, another thing 20 years from now. And honestly, I'm very excited for those changes. I might not be the same person at that point. But I'm excited to see what I'm going to become. And I hope that I remain open and judgment free about it and not so tied to my identity as a bisexual woman, because that might change. So just kind of let go of your attachments to your current labels or to your current way of being. Just look at yourself as a person and follow where it takes you. It shouldn't be super hard. It should actually be kind of fun.
Yeah.
It can be fun if you want it to be.
Yep. Like who you like. That's it. And whoever out there is telling you shouldn't like who you like, fuck them. That's it. Because like for me, it was a lot of external pressures. You're not supposed to like this girl. You're not supposed to do these things. But that's what I genuinely felt like I wanted to do. So whoever tells you otherwise, fuck off. Tell them
And
to
And
fuck
look,
off.
we don't normally do this, but I think we're getting some such good advice in the comment section.
oh
We'll
yeah.
get to it. Some of our customers with their advice for our anonymous today. Jaden says, try whatever feels good and try to trust that it's okay to not know exactly who you are and what you like, even for long periods of time, and that it's okay to change labels, identities, pronouns, and names.
I like this
Mark said,
point
yeah.
that Jaden
Mhm.
brought up because I feel like we are very stuck to labels. We're always like, what am I? What am I? I like this. I like that. What am I? And it's like, yeah, labels are very helpful because they put a word to a thing that you are feeling. But if you haven't put a pin on that yet, you can just be. You can still do the things without a label. A lot of people choose to go without it for many reasons. So release yourself from the pressure of trying to put a label on it immediately and just explore until you're sure.
Yeah, and it's never too late, as is evidenced by Mark's comment, who says, "Until recently, I thought I was straight, but as I opened up to being willing to enjoy all people regardless of gender, I became willing to give a man sexual pleasure. Here again, my being bisexual is a stage of maturity." Like a
Love
fine
that.
wine, this man is aging. All right. Well, if you'd like to send us your anonymous questions or confessions, you can submit through our opening up form. That is it for opening up.
Awesome. So, would you like to promote any of your socials before we go, Jobim?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Twitter under Jobimism. That's Jobimism. I'm on Instagram as Jobim Javier, and I also have a radio show called Rude Awakenings. It's back to Rude Awakenings now. It's no longer the morning show. Morning show. We just, we don't give a fuck, really.
Again,
We
you
just
can change
announced
the
on the
name
show today.
anytime you want.
Yep, nobody cares. We have like 3 listeners. Who's paying attention? Who's fucking counting? So yeah, it's called Rude Awakenings again, and it's on Jam 88.3 at 10 a.m. Woo!
How about you, Presh?
I'm on Twitter ish. That's fresh selections if you'd like to follow me for cryptic tweets. And I have 2 music projects. One is a pop project. It's called Rosa and Solana, and the other is indie shit. That's fresh without the e. Right. So you can check us out on
That's how you
Spotify.
can tell it's indie, by the way. It's
Yeah.
certified indie if there's no
Yeah.
vowels in it,
All
right?
lowercase.
Yeah.
Yep.
No
All
All
vowels.
lowercase.
lowercase.
What's the font, Fresh? What the fuck is the font? There better be
Is
no
there a
serifs on
period
that shit.
after?
Hmm?
Jokerman and Chiller. Anyway.
Not wingdings? All right.
No, not big things.
Garamond for extra
Actually,
fanciness.
Garamond is a very nice font. Yeah, thank
Who
you.
knew we were all font geeks? All right. Moving on. Trisha,
All right,
your
and
socials?
I am at Trisha O'Bannon on Twitter. You can follow me for cat pics and constant gushing about my girlfriend. You can also stay updated with Now Open by following us on Facebook, Twitter, that's at Now Open PH. Our past episodes are also available on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. We are actually updating the Spotify now every week. It's a little bit behind, but we're doing it.
Sweet.
Don't forget as well to join our Discord server to hang out with the hosts, fans, and friends of Now Open. If you're free this Thursday, we're playing Left 4 Dead. So download it and you can be in our party. And also subscribe to our coffee page. That's www.fee.com/now-openph to get bonus content and other special perks. So I'm really excited to announce the next episode because if y'all aren't aware, June is Gemini season, my birth month, and Pride. It's fucking perfect.
Yes. Trisha's going to be unbearable next month. No.
I know. It's going to be terrible, but you love me.
Yeah, we do.
So next week, join us for our inaugural Pride Month episode. We are going to be talking about Pride as protest. So we're going to talk about the amazing political reasons that Pride exists and why we should continue that history today. So
Trust
we'll
us,
be
it's an
talking more about
episode
Jollibee.
you are not going to want to miss. It's going to be so much fun and so educational. And I believe we're going to have guests for that episode. So you'll find out who they are very, very soon.
Yes. So thank you everyone who joined us tonight. I'm just going to do a really quick rundown of everybody who commented. So if you want us to mention your name, now's your last chance to do it. Want to say thanks to Matt, Chase, Jaden, Giselle, Nick, Essa. It's Guy, right?
Yeah,
Guy. Who else is in here? Mark, of course. I have to say, oh hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Stefan, Rachel, of course. Mackie's here as well. Tress. We have another Mark, so 2 Marks. And I think that's most people. Hi, Tin, our social media manager is here as well. So thank you, everyone. Hannah's here as well. Late, but hi.
No hi for you. You're late.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you join us again next week. And for all the Tuesdays after this, see y'alls when we next open.
Bye-bye.
Wait.
Pressure.